and welcome to Bible Smack. Today we're going to be dealing with a series called What's the Big Deal About the KJV? It's by a preacher named Dr. Samuel Gipp, and he does a really good, well-produced video series. I don't know if it's going to end anytime soon because they have it in episodes. But he represents what we might call the Ruckmanite position. And I've kind of, I've been on here and stuff, and I've kind of, revealed that I'm somebody who supports the King James Bible and stuff like that. But not all those who support the King James Bible have the same position that they're arguing. And basically, Dr. Gipp kind of represents a Ruckmanite position, and I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about what that means. It's named after a guy, Dr. Peter Ruckman, and Dr. Ruckman is a fellow who's famous as an independent Baptist preacher, and his basic position is that the King James Bible is absolutely inspired. And when I say that, I mean not just the text or the original authors or anything like that. He would say that the King James Version is, 1611 is an inspired Word of God. Even when it has what we call italicized words in it, that is all inspired of God. Now, key to his conclusion, because a lot of people would kind of think, well, he's just some weird man of faith and he has no academic credentials. He actually got his doctorate out of Bob Jones, and he's also been tested with one of those IQ tests, and they kind of graded him at a genius level. So he's no fool. But his basic position is that they say that the original manuscripts we no longer possess, and so we don't have one specific tradition of manuscripts that's been preserved. So Dr. Ruckman argues that what really happened was that as we lost those manuscripts, when we had revival, the Word of God was re-inspired by the 1611 King James Version. He wouldn't say that they knew that they were doing it. He would argue that there's many books of the Bibles that don't claim to be inspired, even though that we know that they're inspired. And so basically, it's pretty unique. But the position I hold is that the King James Version is, basically the best pound-for-pound translation of an absolutely perfect Greek and Hebrew text. Not that the translation is absolutely perfect. But I would argue that the absolutely perfect text was preserved for us. Let me read this to you. Matthew 24, verse 35. Heaven and earth, this is Jesus speaking, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Now, those who do not hold to, they might say that the Bible is not without error. They would say maybe there's some errors in it, or maybe they might hold to a position that says the Bible was inerrant, but it's not been preserved for us perfectly. Basically, those guys would deny the power of this passage. They would say, the words, they kind of come and go, whatever they are. But Jesus says, my words shall not pass away. And Dr. Ruckman, though he seems like he would have a stronger position than I do, actually would deny that. He would say that the Word of God did pass away. It's just been re-inspired. Dr. Gipp is kind of funny because he's a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes he will argue for those manuscripts of the Antiochian and Byzantine text, but then he'll say that the translation is absolutely perfect. And I think that's kind of more political. I think that, it's kind of easier to say that everything's just absolutely perfect Well, no, there's some distinctions. If we're going to say that, we could say every Bible's perfect. We just have a very low view of what perfect actually is. But on a practical level, on this theological level, we are very different. On a practical level, we're very similar. We want people reading the Bible. We believe the best translation is the King James Version. But, like, for instance, he'll argue, well, he did it and re-inspired it in English, and so now we have this perfect Bible. In his series, I think in episode number 3, he's talking to a fellow who's skeptical, but he's still kind of struggling, so he's wanting to ask these questions. And so he talks to Dr. Gipp, and there's 2 issues I noticed. The first one is, Gipp brings up this idea. He says, okay, well, let's say King James is done with, okay? But then I say the ESV is the absolutely perfect Word of God. And it's like, well, then what do you say? Well, you see, what's going on is that there's a little bait and switch there, because why does it have to be that an English translation has to be absolutely perfect? Couldn't God have preserved His words in the same language He put it in to begin with? And you see, there was a book I was reading. It's decades old. I mean, it's probably come out in the 50s or 60s, called From Pagan to Christian. And it's about a Chinese philosopher. I think it was Lin Wutang, but the way the letters were, I'm not sure. But anyway, the Chinese philosopher kind of noticed, he said, the reason that Chinese philosophy does not deal with abstract terms like cosmology that we see in Greek philosophy is because of the language. Different words have several different meanings, and they have different word symbols. So, one word in Chinese may have a word symbol that goes along with it that you wouldn't get, let's say, in English or Greek. So, every word has every little tinge of philosophy to it. So if we wanted something absolutely perfect, wouldn't we need something absolutely perfect in the same language that it was inspired in? Okay? So, we go back, and then the other problem is that he would kind of go on, and he makes an argument, a good argument. It's just that what he's pulling along with it is just what's making people, even in the video, go, huh? And he says, okay, well, the idea of a perfect Bible